Hi, I just realized that I forgot to post a video on how I prepared for the GCSEs after I posted the video on my results reveal. So in this video, I'll be looking into how I prepared for the subject biology, and in the next week or so, I'm just going to go through individual subjects. But biology is going to cover all of my sciences because I think the IGCSEs, in terms of sciences, they're very similar in terms of the preparation stage. So I'm just going to cover biology, and that would be it for the sciences. Right, so in terms of biology, we're going to look into how much past papers I solved, how I kept track of the questions that I got wrong, how I kept track of which past papers I solved, and everything in this video. Right, so in terms of the quantity of past papers, I just try to get my hands on as much past papers as possible, just because in the GCSEs, although the questions are generally easy and the content is very easy to digest, there are some questions that just have really picky marking schemes that are quite not so lenient. So in order to get those points, it's really important that you've seen question types like those in the past papers prior to going into the exam. So I think really getting that experience by solving a lot of past papers would help me in minimizing mistakes. So that's why I solved so many past papers. In terms of how I kept track of all the past papers that I solved, I used this biology progress note, and it had each of these notes for like individual subjects, and this is where I kept track of past papers that I solved under each unit in different past paper websites like PMT, for instance. You can see that I solved quite a lot. And also for each of the different types of papers, paper 2 and paper 4. I didn't necessarily solve a lot of paper 6. I think I solved only like 3 or 4 of them before I went in an exam, because for paper 6, the question types are very, very similar. And once you get the hang of them by analyzing a couple of past papers, you can easily solve them when you go into the exam hall. Right, so this is it in terms of how I kept progress and how I kept note of what I did in terms of solving past papers. In terms of looking into individual units, as you can see, I pretty much solved a couple of questions under each unit. I'm Korean, so there's a little bit of Korean involved here as well. We're just going to browse one of my notes. So I had a note dedicated specifically to questions that I got wrong in past papers. I think it's really important for us to fully understand the marking scheme and analyze the marking scheme in order to not only understand like the question content, but to not miss any marks. Yeah, so I pretty much just analyzed the marking scheme in some cases, did some extra research because I was a little bit intrigued with certain statements in the marking scheme and so on, and I think this really helped me in terms of getting the content fully and digesting it in its entirety. So this is what I did. As you can see, it's 14 pages, and I had pretty much one of these for every single unit under every single subject. And I think this not only helped me for the IGCSEs, but it also fed my intellectual curiosity, and at the same time acted as a branching point for me to dive into different subtopics in different subjects and broaden my intellectual curiosity. So, of course, having these notes are always great. I think that's pretty much it in terms of preparation that I did for each of the individual subjects for IGCSEs. I wouldn't necessarily say that these notes are helpful when you get them from another person. I think what matters most is you make your own note in order to understand fully what your strengths and weaknesses are. And I think the real value of this preparation for the exam comes from you actually making the note, actually having to reflect on yourself as you make these notes. So I think that's best for you to make it. I think really having the opportunity to take the GCSEs would help you a lot in terms of growing not only as a student and as an intellect, but at the same time as a person in terms of managing your time and doing all of these different things at once, because the GCSEs are a month-long exam, 2-month-long actually. You have to balance all of these different things, and in the case of myself, I had MUN competitions that I had to chair, blood drives to host, harp recitals to host, so of course it was a very busy 2 months for me, and I think I learned how to not only manage my academics, but also do my extracurriculars and just manage like my well-being as a person by going through the GCSEs. So I think really take this experience fully, and even though your results don't necessarily come up to par or don't necessarily satisfy you, just realize that you have a lot to take away from this experience and you will grow as a person.